So that's a production thing. You can figure out the audiobook, right? It's going to be okay. And you don't have to make that decision about who's going to be the audiobook narrator right now. If your gut is telling you that you need to tell this from the perspective because she's an interesting character, I think that's what you should do. Go with your gut.
Hey everyone, Joe Bunting here. If you want to get coaching by a best-selling author, we have a few more spots available this month. Make sure to go sign up now. There's a link in the description so you can sign up for coaching. If you want to accomplish your goals this year as a writer, I think coaching is one of the best things that you can do to make that happen. So check it out. Coaching link in the description. Sign up, get coached, write your book. It's going to be great. See you soon.
For today, you want specifically feedback on the structure of your book and kind of thinking through how to write this book, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not looking at chapters. We're just kind of looking at the book as a whole.
Right.
Okay, cool. Well, normally I would say let's start with the premise, which is here. A reluctant king sets out to save his new queen from an undead dragon that is hunting her while not knowing he's actually in a hyper VR video game, which I love that premise, but I want to skip down to the synopsis because I think it gives some more context, and we'll come back to the premise and then talk about the rest of the book plan and then the structure of the book as well. Sound good?
Alrighty. Yeah.
All right. So I'll just go ahead and read the synopsis. It's a little bit long, but I think it's not too long. I mean, I think that's a good length for a synopsis, but we'll go through this. Zaika, is that how it's pronounced? Zaiku.
Yeah.
After sacrificing himself in the third zone boss battle. And this is book 4. Okay.
Yes.
Can you give us some quick context on what happened in the series and especially in the last book?
Basically, the series starts with there's a brand new virtual reality, like super immersive video game that comes out called Dark Days. And so right after launch, all the million players who log in, they can't log out and they get stuck inside the video game. And the hacker basically tells them that they're going to die unless the best gamer in the world comes and fights them at the end of the game. So the pro gamer Zaiku, who wasn't even in the game, kind of with a hero complex, thinks, oh, well, I'm badass, I can do it. And so he enters the game willingly, thinking he can just easily breeze through it and get to the end of the game and save everybody. Of course, when he enters the game, quickly finds out he's completely wrong, that he can't do it on his own. So he has to learn to not be a solo player and join up with other people, and essentially makes it through the first book, the first zone of the game. And then the second book, it gets more in detail with like the beta players and the hackers' background information. But then the third book I haven't published yet. I'm still like in the first draft editing phase of it. So it was a Christmas themed book. I originally planned to release it on Christmas because it's called Ebony Eve, and it takes place like on an eternal Christmas Eve.
Love it.
So at the end, like towards the end of that book, like something happens where the main character has to do a sacrifice to beat the boss. And the next, like at the end of the book, you don't know what happens to him. So the fourth book here starts off with this, but I'm also, one of the things I wanted to discuss when we get to it is if you think it'd be a good idea to switch the narrator to a different narrator, either from main character or this character.
Okay. So thinking about POV switching, which in general is very risky, right?
Right.
Just because it's hard to pull off well, but also you can get into jams sometimes just from if the character doesn't know what happens. Yeah, so I get that. All right. Well, let's start talking about this synopsis and then we'll go from there. All right. So Zaiku, after sacrificing himself in this third zone boss battle, awakens in a dungeon with no memory of who he is. The game elements like CUDs and life bars have been turned off. So he has no idea he is in a video game. He thinks he's really a prisoner from the medieval setting. The queen comes to him and offers him a chance for redemption if he becomes her king while she is away. He agrees and finds he is marrying her. She leaves and he's left to rule when an undead dragon, its name is Terra, attacks. He gathers a team to hunt down this dragon to protect the kingdom. Little does he know that every citizen is a player with their memories erased as well, including Zaiku's old friends. Even those who have died are back, although only their minds, as in real life they died. One player, Zimea, is that right? Zimea?
Zimia. That's how
Okay.
the audio narrator decided. I was like,
Okay.
okay, I'll just keep that.
Cool. Re-entered the game after escaping. She is the only one aware that they are in a game and has her full memory. She was forced to go through the whole game again to make it back, so months have passed. Zimia, being Zaiku's lover, must convince him he is in a game and that the dead are akin to ghosts. And the undead dragon is actually trying to kill the queen, or that is actually trying to kill the queen, is on their side. Okay. Got it. So if you were to do another narrator, would it be Zimia?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Well, let's think through that. I mean, I think you could go either way. In general, I think it's always a good idea to stick with the same narrator. But I see the advantages, especially because she knows things that he doesn't, right?
Right. Yeah, she actually found out at the end of the last book who the actual hacker is.
Oh, yeah. So
And
yeah,
so
that could be
that's why she
interesting.
entered, like, at the epilogue of the third book was from her perspective.
Yeah. And since he doesn't know who he is, it almost might be more of a break if he's the narrator, right?
Right.
Because he is just going to be thinking like a medieval dude.
Right.
Okay, that's a good question. I'm intrigued by that idea. All right. So let's go back to the premise, because I think this premise doesn't fully reflect what we're talking about here. And the reason why we come up with a premise is for a couple of reasons. One, because it gives us a clear picture of what the book is going to be. It's kind of like the compass that guides the writing process through the whole thing, right? And when we get lost in the plot, it can help guide us back. So this premise, to me, doesn't fully reflect what we were talking about in the synopsis. So a reluctant king must save his new queen from an undead dragon that is hunting her while not knowing he's actually in a hyper realistic VR video game. All right. So I think the video game part, the situation needs to be clearer. I guess this is also tricky because the whole fact that he lost his memory. Right. How far into the plot does he discover that he might have lost his memory, that he might be in a video game?
I'd say probably about 2/3 of the way through, like not too far from the end, but definitely far enough to where there's a little bit to mess around with it.
I gotcha. Okay. That's interesting. Another question, to what extent, like, how it seems like the queen from the synopsis is sort of in and out. How much of the story is she, when does she disappear?
Pretty much in the first chapter, it's going to be right at the beginning, because she's actually the hacker, and she's off trying to do her hacking thing, and that's why she leaves the kingdom, like, to him.
Yeah. So she wipes his mind, bounces. One of the things that is tricky is that the way that this is written just seems to me to imply some kind of love story.
Oh yeah, she's actually in love with him.
Love.
That's why she saved his life at the end, like between books, and erased his memory and makes him the king.
Oh, well, that's really exciting. Okay, so there's some love story element. Let's jump down to this. Do you have a sense of plot type, especially with right structure terms? I'm not sure how familiar you are with those, but with plot type.
I did take one of your video sessions where you were talking about them, but I do not remember the actual terms for them.
Okay, the ones you have here are life versus a fate worse than death. Okay, so kind of thrillery. Good versus evil, some temptation stuff. and then love versus hate as the subplot. Yeah, I'm definitely getting that. So how would you map out the subplot, the love story? Do you feel like with her just appearing in that first chapter, if there's much of a love story going on, and then does she kind of come back and come in and out when after she's captured by the dragon?
In the third book, I did explore the how she fell in love with him and her motivations and all that, but so I didn't want to focus too much on that in this book. But there's definitely going to be an element of love in there with her. It's basically a triangle between Zemia, Zaiku, and Jacqueline.
Okay.
She will be back towards the end of the book once Zaiku figures out the truth about everything. I'm not sure if she's going to be like the final battle. I'm still not sure like how that's going to work yet. But
Is
she's
this
definitely
going
going
to
to
be
be
the
there.
last book in the series?
No, there. I'm planning at least, not at least, but I'm planning 7 books.
Oh, wow. So we have more.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there's definitely an opportunity to play up the love triangle in this one, right? Just to think about the subplot. If you were to map out their relationship,
Mhm.
starting even in earlier books, and we'll say like this is love or this is closeness, toward them getting together. This is they hate each other. How would you map it out? I mean, I'm assuming we're starting at complete hatred because she's the bad guy.
It's actually flipped the other way around. It's in the beginning. It's Zemia that's on the negative side, whereas
Oh,
they have this like tension, like where she hates him
nice.
and thinks he's like conceited because he came to the game thinking he could, do everything. And the hacker has been in love with him since a video game tournament where he actually played against her in the tournament,
Oh,
and he
nice.
was able to beat her in the tournament, and so she got this obsession with him.
I love it.
And so that's why like she actually lured him into the game herself. Like she
That
was
makes sense.
hoping that he would get in the game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So end of book 3, where do they stay?
At the end of book 3, with Zemia, like they had finally declared their love to each other in the last moments,
Okay.
and Jacqueline had been driven off by Zemia, and Zaiku was apparently dying at the end of the third book. So
Okay.
Zemia left the game because when in the storyline, if you beat one of the main bosses, you can leave the game. That's the only way to get out other than finishing the game.
Yeah,
So she thought Zaiku was like dead, so she left the game after she beat the third boss.
got it.
And then she comes back in, yada yada.
Wow. Super fun. Yeah, I like the idea of really playing into this rivalry between Zemia and Jacqueline. And I'm wondering if one chapter is enough, right?
Mhm.
To play that up. You know
Okay.
what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Mhm.
Let's come back to that. All right. So, reluctant king must save his new queen from an undead dragon. At what point does the undead dragon come in?
That was going to be shortly after she leaves. The dragon's going to attack the kingdom looking for her. And I was thinking that's probably going to be like the second or third chapter, kind of like
Okay.
the major inciting incident.
Yeah, definitely. What reason does she give for having to leave?
That I'm not entirely sure yet. Like I said, it's still planning, but she's definitely going to give him an in like a realistic lie. Like that she's going to go do this maybe pilgrimage or holy quest or something.
And she has to leave to do the dragon things.
Yeah, because she can leave the game willingly. She's not trapped in there like everyone else.
Interesting. Does she talk to him at all during the rest of the story except for
I wasn't planning on having much, maybe like a letter delivered from her,
okay,
like a
that works.
courier kind of thing,
Yeah, I like
but
that.
not her actually showing up until and finding out that he knows the truth until right near the end.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is good. Let me come back to that because I have some ideas as far as how to structure this. I think though, for the sake of our premise, she needs to leave because the dragon is hunting her, and maybe he thinks the dragon has captured her, right?
Right.
That will
Okay.
up the stakes of
Right.
him finding the dragon, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about this arc.
So I really wasn't sure what to, like. I mean, I was just kind of like thinking of in my mind, like popping ideas in there, like, well, this will happen, this will happen. You know, it goes up and down the whole time.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it starts off where he's in the dungeon, so it's like, and he gets offered a chance at redemption, so it goes up a little bit. But then the queen leaves and the dragon attacks. It goes down, and I was just kind of imagining things just keep escalating because I wasn't really thinking of specific things yet.
Mm,
But then I
okay.
wanted to end like good this time, so because the last book ended bad, so this one ended
Yeah.
good.
Right. Yeah, I can't tell. I mean, some of this happens so quickly.
Hmm.
Like he's in the dungeon, but then he's king like overnight.
Yeah, the
It feels like.
prologue. I did write a prologue. I don't know where I put the file. I couldn't find it, but I did write a prologue where he's in the dungeon, and she. That's when the queen comes to him and offers him the redemption if he marries her.
Yeah. Yeah, to me that almost feels starting out like up here.
Hmm.
And so then you have if that's true, then you have kind of a man in a hole plot, maybe double man in a hole.
Right.
So if it's man in a hole, let me see. At what point does Zimia return?
Within the first few chapters, he's going to show up and kind of be a little bit in and out for a little bit because he thinks she's crazy because she's coming talking about this weird game thing, so he throws her in the dungeon, and she escapes and kind of like follows him on his quest and kind of comes in and out until she's finally able to convince him that he what the truth really is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's tricky. And then there's the question of should we just narrate it from her perspective?
Right. My biggest concern with that was the whole using the same audiobook narrator, because obviously I can't use the same narrator for her as I did for Zaiku because male, female, that kind of thing. So I don't know what to do with that. And I don't know if the other books would be narrated by her or Zaiku, trying to figure out all that out still. It could
Yeah,
just
I
be
mean,
this is their only book. I don't know.
first of all, I would make that decision independently from the audiobook narrator. Two, I do think you can use the same narrator as long as he uses like just a slightly different voice, right? I mean, ideally, if we had unlimited budgets, we would all just have different narrators, but I don't think it's the end of the world if it's slightly different. And also you can always publish another audiobook, right? if the series takes off and blows up, you'll be able to afford another narrator. So, I'm trying to think, what do you think, how do you think that would change the story is what I'm wondering, because it feels like the story will begin in a pretty different place if
Right.
Zimia is the narrator.
I think it changed at least the first half of the story probably pretty drastically because I don't know if I would start with her like just briefly not breezing through, but like kind of like the prologue, I guess, would be her trying to get through the beginning of the game again, kind of like in bits and pieces, because like I said, she has to start from the beginning,
Wow.
and then I guess it would just be her trying to follow him and convince him the whole time. Haven't put much thought into that version yet.
Yeah, man, that's tricky.
I mean, I don't want to pull a Stephanie Meyer and like write the same book from two different characters' perspectives. I know she did that with Twilight.
I know. Yeah, I see why this is a hard decision, because the inciting incident is kind of totally different if she's the protagonist, because at that point it's really her decision to re-enter the game,
Right.
and even before that, I mean, I guess the inciting incident is her realizing he's alive and
Mm-hmm.
that he needs help, right?
Right.
And then she responds by going into the game. Yeah, wow. Okay. Are you leaning toward a specific way? Let's
I've
just
really been
separate all of the consequences. Forget the audiobook narrator. Forget everything else. Like, what do you think will make a better story?
my original thought plan was for her to be the protagonist.
Yeah.
Because I said the epilogue of the previous book ended with her perspective.
Yeah.
So that was my plan to go into the next book with her being the protagonist point of view.
Okay.
I like that idea better because it's like a fresh take on the perspective.
Yeah.
Because we've already been in his mind before, but then at the same time, like you said, he'll think he's just like a medieval person.
Yeah.
So it's really back and forth. Not really
Yep.
sure. And I don't want to do the splitting thing. I've done that with other books, and that was just too much. Doing two characters in one book, like
Yeah. No.
switching perspectives per chapters. My first book split between 6 different characters, and it
Oh my
was just
gosh.
not. That's why it was 150,000 words.
Yeah. No. I mean, the simpler the POV you can keep it, the better, in my opinion.
Right.
Okay. So what made you want to think about Zaiku's perspective then, doing it? I mean, you were originally thinking about doing it from Zimia's perspective. What made it you want to
It was
switch
mainly
to?
the audiobook thing.
Okay. So that's a production thing. You can figure out the audiobook, right?
Right.
It's going to be okay. And you don't have to make that decision about who's going to be the audiobook narrator right now. If your gut is telling you that you need to tell this from the perspective of Zimia because she's an interesting character and you already set it up with the epilogue, I think that's what you should do. Go with your gut.
Right. Yeah, that was my first gut instinct was to put it like from her at least for one book.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I kind of have this thing where I'm like OCD about like things being like balanced. So it'd be like 3 books Saiku, then Zimia, then the last 3 books Saiku again. Like kind of
Yeah.
like a balance thing.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's a great idea. Do it.
All right.
It means you have to rewrite the synopsis.
Right.
And you have to rewrite the premise, obviously.
Right.
My recommendation is that she spends at least half a chapter and maybe a full chapter in the real world before she discovers that he is alive.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I could see like maybe she finds out like maybe they're watching the game through like on TV, like through a stream, and she sees he's alive or something like that.
Yeah. And you need to sell that. You need to talk about how crazy that is for her and how it just shatters her.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that does sound like a really good idea.
This is the inciting incident, right? After she escapes the deadly game. This is stupid, I know. You'll have to do a better job with it. Zimia goal, and let's do this. After escaping, goal is to just enjoy life. What is her goal?
Get back to normal life, enjoy life. Yeah, I mean she's had a pretty hard life, her backstory.
Yeah. Discovers Zaiku is actually, until she discovers her dead lover. What's the hacker's name? Jacqueline?
Yeah, she goes by Z. Just the letter Z. And that's why the game itself inside in the story is called Dark Days with an S, but that's why there's a Z at the end.
And they're all Z's.
That I didn't actually plan on. That just
kind of love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is a bad version of your premise. I think you could do better than that, but I think it gives us a good start. Usually your premise will focus on the inciting. Evil hacker, and she must re-enter the game from the beginning to save him. Does that sound right?
Yeah. I do like how that adds another element to the risks or whatever, because if she doesn't save him and get him to realize what's going on, they're all going to be stuck in the game forever like that. So it's like everything is like on her shoulders for that perspective. not just hit the love situation.
Okay, this is stretching the limits of one sentence,
Right.
but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's good. She discovers he's alive. This is really important to sell. It needs to be real, right? Some other things that occur to me as we're thinking through this, and I would just really like, as much as you can, make Jacqueline sympathetic. Okay. Especially to Zaiku. You know, my feedback to you, I'm not sure how to pronounce him or write his name. Just like this.
DY, but yeah, we're
Okay.
close.
There we go. My feedback to you was going to be really sell their love story, almost make it look like they could get together. Okay. Because I think that's going to up the ante for all of this. What point after Zimia comes into the game and re-meets Zaiku, does Jacqueline leave? Does she leave before?
Yeah, before.
Okay. I think that's okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. But at some point, Jacqueline needs to talk to Zaiku, I think. Not Zaiku, Zimia.
Zimia, okay.
I think there should be a way that Jacqueline can stay in touch with Zaiku throughout.
Yeah, there
Okay.
is magic in that world, so it could be something magical like a
Yeah,
scrying mirror or something.
exactly. I love that. I think that's great. And that's a way she can continue to manipulate him. And at some point, it would be good for her to do that with Zimia. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I can see where that would definitely create tension there.
Yeah, think about this subplot as an arc. They start here because he's dead, right? The inciting incident rockets them up to in love, realizing that he doesn't remember her and that he is actually quote unquote in love with Zimia. He needs to also not be reluctant. Okay.
Okay.
He needs to like her. He might have some doubts and foreboding about it, but like he's committed to the relationship, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
the cool thing about this is it gives you the opportunity to just reset the relationship and go through the whole love story subplot again, right? Which is
Right.
so fun. So start here. She's in love with him, but he's gone. Okay, that rockets them down to here. She slowly builds trust. They slowly start to fall in love again. Okay, super duper slowly over the story. And then something happens. There's got to be some kind of breakup. Okay. So in every love story subplot, you have to have a breakup. And I don't know what that breakup would be. Do you already have a breakup like that in there?
Not for this book, no.
Okay.
I haven't thought of one yet.
So like they need to be growing in trust over the middle of the book to the point where they're like kind of together again. Now he feels bad about that because he's still quote unquote married to the queen.
Right.
She's been captured. And that almost like intensifies the pain, right?
Right.
But then they need to have some kind of breakup. Maybe he gets mad. Maybe that's when she reveals that they used to be together and he doesn't remember anything. Maybe 2/3 of the way through, like you said.
Right.
Right? You said she tries to convince him.
It could be something, maybe one of his memories triggers from the first book. In the first book, there was a whole part near the end where she betrayed him
Oh,
and their entire party. She basically sold her one of their party members to the final boss to be killed because the final boss offered her dead sister back to. So she betrayed the whole team to sell out their friend.
yeah. I like that. But I also think this part's important. Okay. So at first, she doesn't try to convince him because she knows he won't believe her.
Right.
right? Is that what happens?
Yeah.
Okay. Then they're falling in love. She goes for it. She tries to convince him, and he doesn't believe her. And he's like, no, you're just trying to break me up from my wife. I need to save her. This is a dangerous undead dragon. Get out of here. And they need to have a breakup. And
Right.
I think she actually needs to go away from the party, or maybe she takes the party with her.
Mm-hmm.
There's a split in the party. Some people go with her, some people go with him.
Right. Yeah. That sounds like a good idea.
And then, I mean, it doesn't matter. She could go on her own, but they need to separate. And then that's what sets up the dragon coming, or Jacqueline coming. I don't know. That's going to set up the kind of final confrontation.
Right.
It's like Ready Player One, right? When what's her face and what's his face break up. You know what I'm talking about? Artemis.
Unfortunately, I don't know anything about Ready
You
Player
haven't
One.
read Ready Player One and you're writing lit RPG?
I have the audiobook. I just have not listened to it yet.
Dude. Okay.
I wasn't even aware that it existed when I created this story, the first book.
Okay. Well, I love that you didn't know it existed. And now that period is over. Okay. You need to read it. It's very
Right.
important that we understand the books that are successful in our genre.
Right.
Right. And your book is totally different. So I'm not worried about you like stealing things, but you need to know how this book plays out.
Okay.
All right. Let me think of a different example that you have read. I don't know. Gosh, I can't believe this is like the perfect example.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. The only negative thing anyone ever said about my book, my Dark Days book, was one person just messaged me saying Ready Player One was better, and I'm like, what? What's Ready Player One?
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I don't even have an example now, but at some point the characters break up,
Mm.
and then there must be some kind of proof of love scene. Okay.
Right.
So a proof of love scene is, in every, like, what's a stupid romantic comedy that you watched recently? Hopefully that I've seen as well. Otherwise it will be difficult. Have you seen How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days? No. Okay. How about, oh gosh, this is too hard to think about on the spot.
I think I know what you mean, though.
You get the point, though. Like the
Mhm.
characters running through the airport in New York City.
Right. Like in the Friends.
Yeah. Driving across town, trying to catch a plane, whatever. They're
Mhm.
chasing the character down and saying they realize they had this realization that they need to be together, right?
Right.
Or that they have to save them no matter what. Okay.
Mhm.
And or selflessly, right? Even if
Mhm.
they're not together, they have to pronounce this thing, their truth.
Right.
And overcoming great odds to do this, they do it, and they're either together or not. But that's the proof of love scene.
Right.
You have to have the breakup before that. They have to be broken up first so that the proof of love scene works. Okay.
Right.
So that's why I think it's important at some point, maybe here in the middle, maybe a little bit further on, that they have some kind of breakup. Everyone goes their separate ways. You can have a couple of fights even in here. Okay.
Mhm.
And then either Zaiku's about to die or Zimia's about to die, and the other one goes after them. Right.
Right.
It would
Mhm.
work if it was Zaiku. He could go after her.
Right.
But it could also work if it's Zimia going after him. Either of those options will work cool. But go after him. The Undead Dragon, since the dragon is on their team, how does that fight work out? Like, how does the Undead Dragon do? How does
Well,
Saiku realize that he's on the same team as?
the way the dragon is on the same team is because it's being controlled by another player, that the really powerful other player. They would control the dragon and make it help them
Yeah.
to try to kill Jacqueline, because he also has his memory. I just remembered that character. Yeah, he also has his memory of what happened.
Okay.
Like he found out somehow, and he's been trying to kill Jacqueline this entire time.
Okay.
With the dragon.
I like that. No, that's really good. How does it work out with the climax? Have you thought through the climax yet?
Only part I know is that that what I thought was that the dragon and Jacqueline are both going to die.
Okay.
Well, maybe the dragon doesn't die, but Jacqueline at least will die. But since she can come back into the game, she could always come back later. But they don't really know that.
Yeah. Okay.
Like she's gonna show up and be the big boss really at the end of the book.
I'm thinking about how to structure the climax, right? So Zemiya realizes that, or Zaiku realizes, someone realizes that they love the other person. Okay. Right here, at some point, Zaiku has to like realize he has it wrong.
Right.
Right. How does he get his memory back?
It's probably going to be in the moment of him having to save Zemiya from something, like you were saying. Like he'll be like have to save her, and or else she'll be in danger, and like something's going to trigger the memories.
Yeah.
Like I've had the idea that he'll like get like bits and pieces back throughout the story, but
Okay.
he'll never know what to make of them.
Yeah.
But he won't know like fully until right there.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. He stops the dragon or stops Jacqueline or stops something from. Oh, you know what would work? Oh, I don't know if that's possible. Oh gosh. Anyway, there's got to be just this showdown, and it's Jacqueline and it's the dragon and the guy and the character controlling the dragon and Zemiya all showing up, and Zemiya is about to die, and maybe the guy with the dragon is about to die, or he's being manipulated. You could have him like be as Zaiku gets his memory back. Maybe she captures him, the dragon guy. That would be kind of interesting. And then it just kind of there's the big showdown. Okay, that's the climax. And then I would make sure to end with the subplot, Zemiya and Zaiku getting back together.
Right. I did write an epilogue at one point, kind of like, the very final scene.
Yeah.
And it was them, back together happily, and all
Yeah,
the
that's great.
players who died, who had come back to life, but they were like, who had previously died, because Jacqueline was defeated, they all die again.
Oh wow.
And so they're realizing they're about to die. They all thought they were really alive, and then it's like an emotional bit there, including someone they didn't know that was actually dead, one of their team members.
Wow. Man, that's harsh. It's a tough story moment.
Yeah, our characters would hate us if they do.
Wow.
We
No,
were
I
right
like
here.
it though. I think that's
Mhm.
cool. All right. I think that could be part of the climax, right? But then after that, Zumi and Zaiku have a nice moment.
Right.
Yeah. I would flip those a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think you want to end on a positive note, right?
Right. Yeah. As
And
compared to where the last one ended.
yeah, and I think that will give us a bit more positivity feeling. No, this
Right.
is good. I think this is a solid start and a good plan. And I'm glad we've settled on kind of the point of view. I think that's such an important part, right?
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
So
Yeah. I was really, really kind of like tortured over who to make the point of view.
yeah. Yeah. And I think you have a strong beginning, a strong end. And actually the middle is not as formless as I know you mentioned that you're a little bit not sure what happens in the middle, but I don't think it's as formless as it looks. I think you have some good plot points there. Really,
Okay.
really push into the subplot and build up the tension of them loving each other and then
Right.
breaking up. Because I think the subplot's really going to carry you through the middle.
Okay.
Yeah. This is good. It's exciting. Good luck. Keep us updated. Excited for you